The highly anticipated version 1.4 will be dropping in a couple of weeks, in which we will be receiving the final two members of Section 6, Harumasa and Miyabi. Now there has been numerous rumors regarding who exactly will be dropping first, but since Harumasa was officially drip marketed first, and with there not being any real confirmation on who will be arriving first, it would be fair to treat the 1.4 banners like any other version, and so to expect Harumasa to be the first featured banner. Harumasa likely will be the weaker overall DPS between both banners, but to be the best attacker in their game will likely be the case. Also, he will be our second limited male S-rank character, and with just that alone, a lot of players might be looking forward to Harumasa the most within version 1.4, and so with that, I'll be going over his required Ascension and skill upgrade material so you are fully prepared for Harumasa's release, his best team synergies, viable W engines, describe sets Harumasa can utilize, and ultimately, I know it has also been rumored that Harumasa might be a free unit, but if he isn't, if you should summon for Harumasa. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now kicking it off with exactly what you'll need to max out Harumasa on release. To ascend Harumasa, you'll need the usual 4 basic attack certification seals, 32 advanced attack certification seals, and 30 pioneer certification seals. For Harumasa's skills, you'll need 25 basic shock chips, 75 advanced shock chips, 250 specialized shock chips, and 5 hamster cage passes. Regarding the weekly boss and expert challenge materials, there will in fact be a brand new weekly boss and expert challenge within 1.4 that will drop the required materials for Harumasa. So as of now, you'll only be able to farm the seals and chips, but as always, just bear in mind you'll also need 3.7 million dennies. Additionally, if you are intending to pick up the signature W engine, then you will need to farm attack components and of course have even more dennies on hand. Moving on to Harumasa's team synergies, it isn't exactly clear which team will be the most optimal for Harumasa due to rumors about his desire to run with an anomaly character. But since he is an attacker, there will be a few strong compositions that are expected to still perform quite well. Of course, an obvious one would be the Mono Electric team, consisting of Harumasa, Changli, and Rina. The general consensus for teams revolving around an attacker is to have a stun character and support alongside them. So Changli will be one of the best characters to pair alongside Harumasa, especially due to her very powerful core passive that is capable of increasing the stun damage multiplier by a massive 80%, enabling Harumasa, which is expected to be able to deal massive amounts of burst damage just like other attackers, to deal significantly more damage. Also, since Changli's core passive is activated by either attackers or characters from the same faction, it allows for Harumasa to also be perfect for Changli and for her kit to be fully utilized. As for Rina, over time I do believe players have started to appreciate her much more, mostly due to her significantly low field time requirement, allowing for DPS characters that do require a lot of field time to be provided with just that. Also, along with her ability to provide solid buffs consisting of increasing pen ratio by up to 30% and electric damage by 10%, which makes Rina a great support for most teams and especially for the Mono Electric team. So overall, this variation of the Mono Electric team will certainly be an amazing and synergistic team for Harumasa. Alternatively, either Yanagi or Grace would be able to replace Changli to form a dual DPS team, as both might be able to activate Harumasa's core passive, which may also indicate Harumasa being more of a burst damage dealer and wouldn't require that much field time, since he would need to share the field with an anomaly DPS. Additionally, Harumasa would be able to activate both Yanagi and Grace's core passives in return, allowing them to synergize quite well together, and specifically with Grace's core passive, it allows for the damage dealt by shock to be increased by 36%, meaning the entire team can utilize the passive. So if you don't want to be completely dependent on Harumasa's DPS for the team, then either Grace or Yanagi would be a great character to pair alongside him, and would of course allow for shock to be triggered much more often, as they are anomaly DPS characters that can build up electric anomaly insanely quick. Now a more free-to-play variation would be replacing Changli with Anby, since Anby is a free electric stun character that every player does have and is still solid overall. Of course, you would be missing out on major aspects from Changli's kit such as the increased stun damage multiplier, along with the considerable amount of damage Changli is capable of dealing. But Anby is the only other electric stun character in the game and is still a viable option even within endgame, so you would definitely be able to get by with replacing Changli with Anby. An even more free-to-play comp which I would only really suggest if you have no other choice would be Harumasa with Anby and Nicole. Now with Nicole, she does specialize in supporting ether DPS characters, but is still capable of crowd controlling enemies and reducing their defense, which would allow for Harumasa to deal damage more efficiently as all enemies are pulled in together and will be able to deal more damage on top. So Harumasa alongside the Cunning Hares would be viable and the most free-to-play team to utilize. As for the final team composition, it would consist of Harumasa, Bernice and Caesar. Again, this would heavily depend on whether Harumasa does in fact synergize with anomaly characters, since if so, then Bernice would be a great anomaly character to pair alongside Harumasa, due to her incredibly low field time requirement and the ability to deal damage off field. Then with Caesar providing a ton of utility through her kit such as a massive shield, a 1000 flat attack buff and also not requiring much field time, Harumasa would have a significant amount of time to himself as the main hypercarry within the team. Alternatively, Lighter could possibly replace Bernice as he is a stun character, but since he does specialize in buffing ice and fire characters, he just wouldn't be able to provide as much value to Harumasa as he would for someone like Soldier 11. Though he can still be utilized just as a standard stun character and will be able to extend the stun window by 3 seconds. So overall, Harumasa does have quite a few team compositions to work with, but as of now, his best team is likely the Mono Electric team alongside Changli and Rina. However, closer to his release and when we do have full access to his kit, we would be able to see exactly who will synergize the most with Harumasa. Now as for the viable W engines. The signature W engine will of course provide the most value as always, and so if you want the best build for Harumasa, then it would be advised to pick up his signature W engine, which could be more achievable than other characters as Harumasa might be a free character, allowing you to have more polychromes than usual within version 1.4. Though as for alternatives, the only S rank option would be the Brimstone, as it is the only W engine that doesn't focus on a specific element and can be utilized by any DPS. It does provide a massive boost in attack through the passive and main stat, but doesn't provide anything else such as crit rate or crit damage, which is what I would expect from the signature W engine. However, if Harumasa is intending to be the best attacker, his own kit should be able to provide him with a ton of crit just like Zhu Yuan's kit does. So the Brimstone should be a solid alternative regardless of just increasing attack. As for A-rank alternatives, there are quite a few options such as the Cannon Rotor, Glided Blossom and Starlight Engine. The Cannon Rotor specifically is in fact the only A-rank W engine that provides a crit main stat, so due to that it will be the best A-rank alternative since there would be less pressure on acquiring crit rate substats on Harumasa's disc drives. However, it is a Battle Pass W engine, so just bear that in mind. Between the Starlight Engine and Glided Blossom, since the Glided Blossom is more focused on buffing the damage of EX special attacks, which might not be that valuable of an ability within Harumasa's kit, along with the Starlight Engine providing much more attack overall through its passive, it means the Starlight Engine will likely be the second best alternative and the best free-to-play option. With that, Harumasa's W engine options are pretty limited, since if you don't have the Brimstone or Cannon Rotor, you would only be left with either the Glided Blossom or Starlight Engine. So once again, if you want a strong build for Harumasa as you like him, pulling for his signature W engine would definitely be advised, as it will likely provide a massive boost in his performance. Regarding the disc drive sets Harumasa would utilize, considering that he is an electric attacker which will mostly deal damage scaling off his crit stats, a 4-piece 2-piece Thunder Metal set along with a 2-piece Woodpecker Electro set would likely be the best build, especially when you are running a mono electric team with Harumasa, since the 4-piece effect of the Thunder Metal set will provide 28% attack when the enemy is shocked, which should be most of the time as all 3 characters are building up electric anomaly. Then with the Woodpecker Electro 2-piece, it's pretty much a given that 8% crit rate will be extremely valuable for a DPS character that will want to crit as consistently as possible. However, as I mentioned earlier, Harumasa should be capable of generating a lot of crit through his own kit, meaning the Woodpecker Electro set might not be necessary and so could be replaced by another 2-piece set, such as either the Hormone Punk set for additional attack or the Puffer Electro set for increased pen ratio. So the 2-piece Disc Drive set will depend on the substats you acquire through the 4-piece set, ultimately providing you with some flexibility when building Harumasa. Now as for the main stat to prioritize on the disk drives, you should aim to have either crit rate or crit damage on the 4th disk drive, and the one you opt for will of course depend on your substats. With the 5th disk drive you'll want electric damage bonus, and on the final disk drive you'll want attack percent. Regarding the substats, as with every other attacker, you would want to aim for crit rate or crit damage before anything else, then attack percent, pen and flat attack. So the disk drives are pretty straightforward for Harumasa, as you'll want to build him like any other attacker. Now finally, as for should you summon for Harumasa? As I mentioned, Harumasa could very well be a free S-rank character, and I am leaning more towards that being exactly the case. Only since he is in the same patch as Miyabi, and any other banner alongside her will likely not perform that well. So it would have made more sense to place a character that wouldn't perform well alongside Miyabi. But a free character banner would be the best move to make. However, with that being said, he could still be a summonable character, and so with that, as much as Harumasa will likely be the best attacker in the game, I don't believe he will pack enough punch to compete with even our current anomaly DPS characters, let alone with Miyabi. So if you are aiming to pick up the most valuable character in 1.4, I would advise to focus on guaranteeing Miyabi before considering the pull for Harumasa. Though with that said, it will heavily depend on your account, since if you don't have characters orientated around the anomaly meta and have characters such as Changli and Rina already built up, then of course Harumasa will fit into your account much better straight away than Miyabi. Also, if you just prefer playing with the traditional crit-based DPS characters, then Harumasa will be a great character to pick up. So ultimately, it is down to your own preference and account with who you should summon for in 1.4. But let's just hope Harumasa does end up being a free character so our polychromes aren't completely drained in 1.4. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on whether you would summon for Harumasa if he wasn't free, and what team would you run him in. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.